Now it's time for Culture Talk, where we discuss culturally relevant topics and how you can use them to start conversations about your faith. I'm joined today with the philosopher and theologian, Ken Samples. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sandra.
I want to talk to you about a recent blog that you wrote, and it's on the aesthetic and beauty as being a best explanation for God.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you mention is that Vatican Museum benefactors actually say that their mission is to promote evangelism through beauty. Before we dive into kind of beauty, though, can we discuss what that means? Like, what does beauty mean?
Yeah, well, I was very pleased when I saw the Vatican emphasizing that, because obviously the Vatican Library contains some of the greatest works of art in history, Michelangelo, all of these remarkable artists, and they see this as communicating more than just aesthetic elements. It's communicating kind of the Christian worldview. So beauty is something that grips all of us. I mean, regardless of whether you believe in God or not, all of us see beauty in literature, music, the arts, and oftentimes people base their whole life around it.
Right, yeah, and what your article is explaining is really kind of what we understand as beauty and as aesthetic. So can we dive into then what we mean by aesthetic?
Yeah, aesthetics has to do with beauty, taste, and art, and it raises all kinds of important questions. Is beauty only in the eyes of the beholder? Is there an objective basis for beauty? And why are we gripped by beauty? What is it about the human being that they appreciate it the way they do?
Right, and one of the things that you explain is that beauty actually reflects then our worldview. And how does that work?
Yeah, well, a worldview is like a cluster of our most important beliefs, our view of God, our view of the universe, our view of morality. But a part of that worldview that often is not talked about enough is, how about that aesthetic side? Why is that there? Why do human beings make such an important emphasis of it? And so I would say that's a critical part alongside things like morality and other important issues.
So from maybe like a naturalistic or evolutionary perspective, how would we understand beauty and how that even developed and human appreciation for beauty?
Well, I think that's a very interesting apologetic question, because for many people, beauty seems non-utilitarian. That is, it doesn't appear to contribute toward human survivability as a species. So people have then raised the question, why is there so much beauty in the world? Why do we have human beings that can detect it if evolution is driven by survivability? Now, I should mention, there are evolutionists, there are atheists who say maybe beauty contributes to survivability, in that, a female bird may be attracted by color, and maybe there are elements. I would simply say there's no clear support for the idea that beauty plays a critical part in survivability, which then opens up the door, is there another and a better explanation?
So then from a Christian perspective, how do we look at beauty and why humans are able to appreciate beauty?
I think that's such an important issue, Sandra. God is not just a creator and an engineer. He is all of that, but he's also an artist. That is, God has created the universe with an abundance of beauty, beauty in the things that we see, beauty in what we hear. But he's also created human beings in his image. And so when people, Michelangelo, Raphael, all of these wonderful painters, when they create works of art, they're reflecting that image that God has given them. And so I argue in my piece that the best explanation for beauty in the world and beauty reflected in human beings is that God is behind it as the ultimate playful artist, if you will.
Oh, and I love thinking of God as a playful artist. As someone who I think is creative. I love just imagining God being a creator, and then because we're made in his image, then we are created to create. And I think that's so inspiring for anyone who is interested in the arts. Now, it isn't just Christians, though, who see that beauty and human appreciation for it actually kind of points to God. You mentioned in your article about some non-theists who also point that out. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, I know non-Christians, they're atheists,
Right.
but when they go to an art museum, Sandra, that's like a temple to them.
Yeah.
They're so attracted by it. It raises the question, and I quote a skeptical philosopher in my piece, Paul Draper, who's a leading philosopher. He says that a world that has an abundance of beauty and people who can appreciate beauty weighs in favor of theism over atheism.
Yeah.
So even skeptical philosophers see this as a potential pointer to God.
Right. Well, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's great and a kind of an open door for us then, because we all as humans appreciate beauty and aesthetic value. So, we can appreciate that together, and we can also maybe encourage people to ponder the origin of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, wonderful.
Very good.
Thank you so much for that, Ken. If you want to hear more from Ken Samples, visit reasons.org and search Reflections.